Hi, welcome to my first ever Photoshop tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to take texture off your texture. Pretty much most of us will have used Photoshop to place textures at some point. Usually it's one of the first things we actually learn. It generally takes a nice normal picture and gives it a little bit of a punch, and it's a great fun initially to try out different textures. But I think one of the things that most of us run into at some point is, especially if placing a texture on a person, is the crackly effect on the skin. It's not particularly the most attractive thing. Crocodile skin, scaly skin, not really what you want. Usually most people will put a mask on and mask away, and generally that can work pretty well. So let's just give that a try. So I'm just going to place a texture by dragging and dropping. I'm going to resize it, holding the shift key to keep it centralized. Okay, and I'm going to hit enter, and that's placed it. Now as you can see, my layer is sitting nicely on top. I'm just going to mess about with the blending modes to see what looks best. Generally most people's favorite ones are multiply, overlay, soft light and hard light. You can just toggle once you're on it with the arrow keys. I'm going to keep it on hard light because that's going to work best for this tutorial. So that's placed. What I'm going to do is click down here on my mask button and place a mask. As you can see, the white mask comes up. That means that everything is showing. So what I need to do is paint onto the mask with my paintbrush in the opposite color, which is black, which actually hides the layer that we're on. So that's going to hide the texture. So if I do that, as you can see, if I zoom in, which you can do with your little zoom thing, you can see the texture's gone off of the face. If we click back in the history, you can see there's the texture and no texture. However, you can also see it's changed the colour quite dramatically. It looks really odd. So what we ideally want to do is get rid of the texture and not have scaly skin, but also keep the colour tone. So how do we do that? There are a few ways. As with anything in Photoshop, there's always a few ways, but the best, most easy way I've found, I will show you now. So if we just delete that layer mask, I'm right clicking on the layer mask to do that. Okay, now it's just going to take a tiny bit of preparation, this next step, but you only need to do it the once, unless obviously you reinstall Photoshop, in which case you may need to do it again. But what we need to do is click on the file and click new file, or shortcut would be Control N or Command N on a Mac. Okay, it doesn't really matter here too much the dimension, so I'll just keep it as 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels. Background color is white. That's not too much of an issue either because we're going to fill that color. So just click on OK. Now we've got our 1000 by 1000 box. What we want to do is change the color of that, and the way we do that is by clicking on our paint bucket. Okay, so we're on our paint bucket tool there. And then if we click on our swatches, which is over here, if you haven't got that showing up, you can actually hit up on your window up at the top, and you can pick pretty much which tool panel you actually want showing. So you would go down to swatches. Okay, and that's that one. Now you want around 50% grey ideally, so if you actually look, there's all your greys, probably clicking about there. Okay, although I did pretty much have that already. So just click on your white with your paint bucket and there it is filled. So you've got a lovely grey square. What do you do with it now? Well, you go up to your edit menu and you want to scroll down until you get to this one, define pattern. Click on define pattern and it will bring up this, which allows you to name your pattern, which is what we're making this square. So name it grey 1. Okay, click OK, and that's it. You're done with that. You don't need it anymore. Okay, so you can close it down. You don't need to save anything. Now we're on this. We're trying to get rid of the texture and we're trying to keep the colour. How are we going to do that? Well, we go on to our healing brush tool. Now you've got the choices. You've got spot healing, patch tool, etc. Well, you want the healing brush tool. Now, as normal, it's stuck on sampled there. Okay, that's not what you want. What you want to do is click on pattern. And if you open the box next to it, those are all your patterns. As you see, I've done this one a few times before. The last one will be the one that you've just made, which will be our, if it comes up, nope, it doesn't want to, but that will be your grey 1 square. So if you click on that, there we go, grey 1. If you click on that, you are now going to actually be using that as a sample point. Because it's 50% grey, it pretty much works as a transparency. So what we want to do is use the healing brush tool on this. Now as you can see though, there's nothing coming up at the moment. That means that when I dragged and dropped my layer, and a lot of us have this ticked as standard, our layer is actually pretty much safety precautioned so that you can't damage your layer. If you see there's that little box, and if you click on that, it says the smart object must be rasterized. Okay, so you're on a smart object. You can't damage it, you can't do anything by accident, but that's not what we need. We do actually want to affect that layer. So what you can do is either right click here and click on rasterize layer, or you click on your layer and go down to rasterize and onto layer. Always more than one way with Photoshop. Okay, so as you can see now, we've got the outline of our brush, our healing brush tool. So you can change using the bracket keys the size of that, and I suggest you do that obviously for smaller areas, but just going quickly, I'm going to use that there. Now it doesn't look all that different from the mask, but if you just give it a second once I let go, there, now you can see it. Okay, as you can see, it's the same texture as the face, but it's the colour of our texture. So if I go on to our history, and just before I use that, you can see the difference. So what we're doing is we're getting rid of the texture but keeping that lovely blue tone. If I do a little bit more here, and I would suggest you do it in small increments. So only do it a little bit at a time, unless you've got an uber powerful computer. I mean, mine's actually fairly powerful, but if I go too quickly, it can, well, it gets annoyed with you. And it can take a little while, and there's more likelihood of it having little blotches and blemishes. If that does happen, occasionally you can have a little random pink spot or whatever. Just go up to edit and undo. I've already got that tied into my Wacom tablet, so pretty much for me it's just a click away. But just do keep an eye out when you're doing it. Do it little by little, although it doesn't really take all that long. I'm doing it quite quickly now and roughly so that you can see it. So if I go, there we go. Okay, that's just enough. So if you see now, you've got all that lovely colour and no texture on that skin. And if we go back up before we used our first healing brush tool, you'll see the difference that can make. So there it is with and without. Okay, so that's my first Photoshop tutorial. That's a little tip that I learned. It's nothing too major, but it doesn't seem to be the most widely known thing. So hopefully that will help you all with your textures. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that, and hopefully I'll bring some more to you soon. Happy New Year, everyone.